Hello all, Rick here with another Starship breakdown. Among the first 4 vessels implemented from Star Trek Online into the canon of the on-screen universe was the Sutherland Class starship. In real life, the Sutherland Class was designed by Thomas Moroni as a replacement for the Nebula Class to fill out the uniformed look of the 25th century fleet of ships in Star Trek Online. The Galaxy Class spawned kit bashes of the Nebula, Cheyenne, New Orleans, and so on, which generated a defined look to the ships of the 2360s decades. Just as this was folded into the lore, as these ships shared a design ethos, the concept behind the Sutherland was to capture that again for a new generation of Starfleet ships. Therefore, the Nebula was redesigned with a new flair alongside other iconic silhouettes. The Galaxy class was reimagined as the Andromeda or Cygnus class, and the Miranda as the Reliant, among others. But it's the connection between the Andromeda and the Sutherland I want to examine. The similarities between these two is a mirror of the Galaxy and Nebula connections, with saucer, hull, engineering sections and nacelles all resembling one another. While the Cygnus Andromeda does not appear in the shows, the Sutherland class does, alongside the Reliant, with which it shares some innovations and a design history. This translates to its in-universe role too, with how it both mirrors the Nebula class and has ties to the Reliant. The Sutherland class began development as part of what was termed the 6th generation of developments in Starfleet's technology. This era of design was marked by the fleet-wide introduction of new standardized technologies, including highly efficient warp cores, dibernium hull plating, and most prominently, a large amount of automation run by virtual intelligences within the computer systems. This was in an effort to lower the crew requirements and increase the fleet cohesion. Such technologies would pave the way for the implementation of initiatives such as the ill-fated fleet formation and increased interconnectivity among Starfleet ships. While not the first vessel to be built with this design ethos, that was the Reliant class, follow-up video soon, the Sutherland was the largest attempt at implementation to further test their usefulness. The prototype was completed in 2398 and christened the Sutherland, after the Nebula class that bore the name before it. The ship was typical of its class and designed to undertake long-range scientific missions, as well as survey and reconnaissance. The vessel was in full production by 2400, with several other ships following suit. Within fleet operations, the Sutherland was to support and bolster other vessels, and could act as efficient eyes and a sensor platform. Additionally, it could reinforce the shielding of Allied ships with its adaptive particle emitters. These emitters were designed to be able to create a wide array of effects for scientific experimentation, much like the contemporary Pathfinder class, but it had other uses in fleet support. Above all, however, it was first and foremost a science platform designed to delve deep into the curiosities of space and lay them bare, giving it the mission profile of an advanced long-range research vessel. Unlike the Pathfinder class, which would speed out to the unexplored to study it, the Sutherland could simply get close enough and use its incredibly acute sensor systems to gather data and transmit that back to Starfleet while conducting its own research in the field. Starfleet needs eyes and ears out in the galaxy, but if that was all they were interested in, as Captain Archer once said, then they would have sent a fleet of probes. In fact, the sensor systems were very versatile, with the main sensory arrays, unlike the Nebula class, were not located on the mission pod, but either side of the oversized deflector dish. This allowed them an unobstructed view, as the deflector could clear interfering particles away, cutting a path ahead to see through the metaphorical fog. They were tailored too to be fantastic at passively gathering data without actively scanning ahead, which was useful for reading delicate phenomena but also continuing the Nebula class's application as an avid eavesdropper. These sensors did not ping signals out into space, but could observe the greatest details over substantial distances, making them even more effective and silent watchers. They also had a large array of science labs and a mission pod. There were two known designs: a communications hub that could basically turn the Sutherland into a deep space signal booster or hub, and a launcher pod. Well, the launcher was not only for torpedoes, but also for a wide array of scientific probes. But also torpedoes. The Sutherland was a hefty 652.4 metres long, which makes it about 580 wide and 200.9 tall, including the mission pod. It spanned across 45 decks, again including the pod, and this gave it a massive volume to play with. Despite this, however, thanks to its 6th generation profile, the level of automation meant that its crew numbered only around 720 to 900, which is a massive reduction when compared to something like the 1012 of the Galaxy class. It had an emergency evacuation capacity of around 19,000. Its warp core was capable of warp 9.9 for limited travel, although it could cruise at 7. Speed and manoeuvrability were not its forte. Saying that, it did house the standard quantum slipstream burst drive, which continued the ever-evolving designs for this promising technology, obtained by the crew of the USS Voyager. While still not a replacement for warp drive, slipstream was coming along, and it was common for vessels to be able to make short jumps, covering up to 150 light-years before the drive needed to be shut down. Alongside the Odyssey class, this was one of the largest vessels of the time to support such a drive. In terms of armaments, it had 7 Type 12 phaser arrays, in the standard for the 25th century, and 2 torpedo launchers. This is excluding the mission pod, which was covered in a further 10 launchers, facing practically every angle. The Sutherland class was developed in every way as the unashamed successor to the Nebula class. While the Nebula has a long history of design behind it, beginning as a science ship before finding use as a weapons platform and in spycraft, the Sutherland is just starting out its legacy. However, it picks up where the Nebula left off, learning from the lessons of its predecessors and moving on with the latest innovations. In fact, it's commonly assumed that decommissioned Nebula vessels were stripped down to the frame, and that was used as the bones for a Sutherland. The Nebula had a defined role in the fleet. Like the Galaxy class has the Ross and Odyssey, or the Pathfinder followed the Intrepid. Innovation sought to create newer ships to slot into the profiles of these vessels. So too did the Sutherland replace the Nebula, taking what worked and adding refinements to its mission profiles. What was produced was probably one of Starfleet's most observant vessels. Thank you for watching this breakdown on the Sutherland class. There's not a huge amount of lore behind it, considering it's exactly what it appears to be, and speaking further on it would just be rehashing the Nebula class breakdown. Additionally, the ship was in its prototype phase 3 years prior and is only just entering service at the turn of the 25th century, so it's yet to have such a storied history. I'm saying revisit this space in 3 decades or so when the next ship comes out with underslung nacelles and the mission pod. Until that time, thanks for checking out my breakdown of the Sutherland starships. I've been Rick, and goodbye.